Okay, so trying to explore and observe the use of I language. Well, don't really know how to. So much easier to do this while I'm typing because it's easier to put my thoughts in a coherent order than rambling on a video, but I've been taught like using I language versus you language in several different classes that I've taken. I mean, most likely my sociology class that I've taken, as well as my what's it called, psychology class, discussing and then I took an intimate relationships class too as well, which would have definitely discussed I language versus you language. And ever since then, I was really glad and thankful that I had those classes bring something up like that, because it's made me a lot more aware of what I say to people. Well, in terms of like when I'm actually having a massive argument with them, or if there's something that's like really deeply bothering me, or whatnot. I like, or maybe it's not even something that's bothering me. Sometimes I use I language even when I'm battling people on Facebook about politics or whatever. And in that sense, it's like using I language as in like, this is my point, but I can admit that maybe I don't know everything about this topic, or that I haven't looked up all the information about this particular topic or whatever. Like, in that case, that's what I would use I language for in that sense. I definitely use, like, when I'm talking to people, I usually use both I and you language at the same time. Like, if I'm talking to somebody who's pissed me off or whatever, I usually use both. But I do actually try to make a point to state, like, specifically, like, this is my problem. This is how it makes me feel. And I mean, just recently I had a fight with my boyfriend over something that I thought was insignificant, but apparently, I mean, not to him it wasn't, but I mean, just I went through before doing this video and kind of wrote down a bit of some of the different things that we both ended up using. And I'm lucky that I've got I've got a partner who's fairly good at communicating as well, and we both have a similar approach to it. Even if our ideology doesn't agree, we both have a similar approach to how we communicate it. So that's feels really nice. And I feel like usually when I sit down and try and talk with him, we can usually get something accomplished, or we can, like, I don't have to have like multiple conversations with him throughout a short period of time about the same topic. But the argument that we had, I started off, and yeah, you can get on my case about doing it over text, but the problem with my boyfriend and I is that he lives in England, so he's 6 hours ahead. So sometimes if I'm really mad or something like that, and I can't talk to him about it because he's got to go to bed or whatever, because it's past midnight there. So sometimes I'll just message him what I'm thinking, but I always try and make sure at the end that I tell him that we don't have to talk about this now. I want to talk about it later, but I just wanted to let you know what I was feeling, or else I'll get passive aggressive the next day, and like that'll just make things worse. We've had arguments about that too, and I like how this module has brought up the difference between male and female thinking, and yeah, definitely just from a lot of classes that I've taken, and just from my own personal experience trying to deal with, like, since I have quite a few male friends, trying to understand where they're coming from, why they think the way that they do. I've thought a lot about it, and my favorite thing, or the way, like, crap, what's it called? The best way to explain it that I've heard is men think in boxes. So you start say you start a conversation with them and you start talking about cars. Well, they have their head is made like a waffle, so they have all these little like square compartments, and so you bring up a topic like cars. Oh yeah, okay, well in their brain it's like, okay, let's go pick out this box that's just cars, and let's discuss all about cars, and nothing else permeates into that idea until they're done talking about cars. And then females, on the other hand, are like a giant bowl of spaghetti, where it's like you start talking about cars, and then, oh, but that reminds me of this one time that my computer stopped working, or then, oh, did you see that one video? Like, and I noticed the difference between conversations that I have with my boyfriend versus conversations that I have with like my best friend, and how we, like with my best friend and I, we can go from topic to topic to topic to topic, and with my boyfriend and I, not that it's awkward or anything, but sometimes there'll just be a silence between us, and it's like I have to actively think of another topic to bring up to like to discuss. So thought that was very interesting, and but anyways, I digress. Back to the whole I language. In this last argument that I had, which is, I mean, I don't usually argue with a lot of people. Not often. If you want to count the people I scream out online while I'm playing video games or whatever, I mean, that I think that's a bit different. But if I'm actually trying to have a confrontational conversation with somebody, I don't usually have those often. I'm a very non-confrontational person, and usually it takes a lot for me to even approach somebody with the problem that I have, unless if it just really deeply goes against my moral standing, and also if I don't know them as well. But in the case of my boyfriend and I having this argument, I started out telling him, I don't understand why you find this so annoying, and luckily I started the conversation out that way, and I told him it was very irritating to me because, long story short, he was annoyed with me because I got on somebody's case for calling one of my friends a retard, and I wasn't nice to them. I was very belligerent and used language to shut them down very, very, very quickly, and in his opinion it was uncalled for. So, but I mean, obviously none of you guys really know me or know my personality, but for him I didn't understand why that annoyed him so much, because I don't know how many times I've told him that I stand up for my friends. I don't tolerate people calling my friends bad names and stuff, and I do have a temper, so I can be very belligerent when I'm confronting people, but I mean, I told him that I didn't understand why he thought that was so annoying, because I had to, like, our conversation kind of went quiet, and I had to ask him if he was mad, and he's like, no, I'm not mad, I'm just annoyed. And it was like, well, okay, well, why are you annoyed? Like I don't understand. But I mean, after that, it was sort of you language in a way, but I mean, it wasn't exactly accusatory. It was just trying to get him to try and get him to actively put himself in, if not my shoes, in the other person's shoes, and or like at least help him recall the past event so that maybe he could relate to me a bit more. But I mean, I used more language like, do you know how frustrating that is, and yeah. Like, I think in this last conversation, he and I both did a good job of using I language versus you language. I mean, it was a very logical conversation where it was just like, when you do this, that's what frustrates me. So, I mean, it was still, I mean, the language he was using, he was still saying, well, when you just blatantly attack somebody and go on the offensive so fast over somebody who's so insignificant that you really shouldn't be having a problem with, that's what annoys me, which is kind of using both languages, and there are some days where I can take that kind of language better than other days. So luckily that day was a day that I was actually really actively trying to keep my temper down and trying to understand his point of view without just completely exploding all over the place and like so yeah, there are other days where if he would have said it that way, I probably would have gone completely ballistic and just threw a hissy fit. I mean, I would have been better, like fine, and would have eventually understood what he was saying. But in the moment, it would have been like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. Like, ugh, like, and I probably would have gone on the defensive. But at the same time, knowing my boyfriend, that's just the way that we communicate. And I mean, but he did in other areas use language like, well, I find it annoying when you do this, that's just what annoys me, this is what frustrates me, this is what irritates me, aggravates me, blah 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 blah. And I mean, I said similar things, and I was trying to tell him, I can see your point of view. I don't agree with it, but I can see your point of view. I can understand your point of view. I can understand where you're coming from, but I think I'm justified in what I did. And at one point in time, I mean, I even mentioned to him, I said, I feel like you're not trying to see things from my point of view, and instead of just saying, well, you're not even making an effort to see my side of the story. Like, you're just, like, it wasn't accusatory in any way. And lucky for us, that conversation happened through text, so we didn't have the actual body language to go off of or the inflection to go off of. We just simply had what was being typed. So I did feel attacked, though. I mean, obviously, otherwise it wouldn't have prompted me to send him this message in the first place. But when we were actually on Skype together, and he sort of piped up at one point in time and just told me that he found this, or, well, he was going on the defensive for somebody else, and I was still kind of, like, he was kind of going on the defensive for the person that I kind of went off on, and not necessarily the defensive, but he was just like, well, but, you know, Chloe, you were quick to attack this person right back, so he was like, and I could just hear in his voice that he was not happy. So it went quiet for a moment, and then I just at that point in time was just like, are you angry? And he goes, no, I'm not angry, but I'm just annoyed. And the tone that he used was definitely, like, off-putting for me. And so but I think that had more to do with my stubbornness than the actual, and, like, it had to do with my stubbornness and my quick temper to not even think about his point of view and maybe try and see it from his side. I just automatically thought I was right, and kind of, in my head at least, jumped the hissy fit, and didn't actively throw a hissy fit, but I went quiet after that. I stopped kind of talking and said maybe a couple of words at a time or whatever until I hung up. It was just like, well, I'm gonna go do something else now, bye. and just left. And then later on I went and ranted to my mom, because it was like, I need to understand why maybe this was annoying and frustrating, and I kind of needed to calm down before I talked to him about it. Otherwise I probably would have blew everything out of proportion, which, I mean, it was good to talk to my mom and get perspective, which that honestly probably helped me with my eye language a lot better than just trying to accuse him of doing all these things to me. And so I don't actually know if this is what the video is supposed to be about, or if we're actually supposed to, like, take different instances in our life and like take moments of you language and switch it to I language. But this video is almost 20 minutes long, so yeah, I guess I'll upload it and we'll just, I don't know. I've never been good at this kind of stuff, and yeah, this is what actually goes on in my head versus what's typed out. I might actually sound sane when I'm typing something out, but but yeah, that's just sort of some things that I've noticed, especially recently in my life, of, like, instances of using I language versus you language. So yeah.